Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, April 8th, 2022. Don't read any further if you believe that it's okay for the government to have access to all areas of your financial life. Now, here's a simple way to present the fair tax. In the U.S., enacting the fair tax would be simple. Fair tax legislation would have to pass in both the House and the Senate. Any differences between the House and Senate bills would be reconciled. Then the President would sign the final bill into law. When that happens, the statutory authority to collect an income tax would be repealed. We would have a vastly superior way to fund the government, and taxpayers could take back control of when they pay their federal taxes and how much they pay. Now, Congress and the D.C. bureaucrats clearly understand that the income payroll tax system has a staggering evasion problem. The IRS admits that the tax gap, the difference between taxes owed and taxes actually collected, is at least $1 trillion a year. They understand that this evasion is widespread and is found in every ethnic and income group. Most of the evasion is not being done by criminals. Now, evaders don't identify themselves to the IRS, so in order to significantly reduce evasion, the IRS will have to increase the number of tax audits on all taxpayers and enforce stiff financial and legal penalties to deter other evaders. The IRS has told Congress that in order to stop evasion, it needs unprecedented access to every citizen's banking records. It needs to know how much money is transferred into and out of our bank accounts, and it needs a record of everyone's credit card purchases. The IRS also wants computers that can analyze all the intimate details of a taxpayer's finances and then calculate everyone's tax bill. If the taxpayer doesn't pay what the IRS thinks he or she owes, the IRS will send a demand for the difference and start the collection process. Now, Congress and the D.C. bureaucrats know that the income payroll tax system is fatally flawed, but they insist on propping it up for two primary reasons. One, they make a lot of money selling tax favors to special interests, and they can extort even more by threatening to change the law and take away their special treatment. And also, the income payroll tax system gives them an enormous amount of control over us. By offering tax incentives for certain behaviors and tax penalties for others, they can influence things like what kind of light bulbs we buy, what kind of cars we drive, and how much we can save for our retirement. They oppose the fair tax because they don't want to give up all that power. Now, here are 10 questions to ask your member of Congress or their aides. 1. Do you believe that all federal laws should be obeyed? 2. Do you agree that criminal evasion of the income tax needs to be stopped? 3. Are you in favor of empowering the IRS to catch all of the income tax evaders? 4. To do so, the IRS says it needs significantly more funding so it can audit more and more Americans. It also says it needs access to everyone's banking records and credit card purchases. Do you favor this? 5. If the member says yes to the above question, then ask, do you really want me to make sure that all of your constituents understand that you favor more audits and intrusions into their personal lives? 6. If the member says, of course not, then ask the member how else the evasion can be stopped. 7. Ask the member if eliminating the need to report all of our financial data to the IRS would also eliminate the need to intrude into our privacy. 8. Ask the member if he or she knows about the fair tax. 9. Ask the member if our federal taxes were paid when we made purchases, like state sales taxes, would the federal government need to invade everyone's privacy in order to stop tax evasion? And finally, 10. Ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If not, then point out that not supporting the fair tax leaves the member in one of two positions. He or she either favors giving the IRS more power to invade our privacy, or he or she favors allowing the evasion to continue. In conclusion, Will Rogers said, "Live in such a way that you would not be ashamed to sell your parrot to the town gossip." Now, while many of us try to follow this advice in dealing with others, most of us still resent government intrusions into our privacy. We've come to accept certain intrusions as a price for living in a civilized country. Now, we know that the ownership of our home is public record, and any loans are also public record. We know we need a driver's license to operate a car, that our voter registration and political affiliation is public record, and that we have to register our cars with the DMV. Now, while we might not like having this information on the public record, we can see the reasons for these intrusions. But do you really want the government knowing all of the intimate details of your personal finances when there's a way to fund the government and still keep your personal business private? Does anyone think that the bureaucrats will keep our confidential financial data private when leaking it could advance a political agenda or punish someone for questioning their actions? Now, even if we're not marked for punishment, does anyone believe that our personal financial data can't be hacked and published on the internet? If you think your confidential data is safe, remember what recently happened to many wealthy Americans who saw their confidential income tax returns published on the internet. The income payroll tax system is broken and no longer working. We can't repair it, but we can replace it with the fair tax. Join us and take back control of our country, not with bullets, but with the elimination of one of the biggest threats to our liberty and economic prosperity, the income payroll tax. We should all remember Edmund Burke's warning that applies to our efforts to take back control. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little. We should also remember this quote from George Orwell's 1984, which, if we do nothing, may foretell your and your children's future. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. So what can each of us do? We can write letters and make calls to our elected representatives and attend Zoom town hall meetings demanding that if they really want to allow Americans to take back control, the first step is to eliminate the income payroll tax system and enact the fair tax. Take back control. Help us pass the fair tax. The IRS will be gone and we'll pay our taxes when we make purchases. We, not the ruling class and their minions in D.C., will decide how much federal tax we pay. And we'll know how much tax we're paying because taxes will no longer be hidden from us. It will be clearly shown on every retail receipt. If you have friends who don't know about the fair tax, send them to fairtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under how it works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org.